Well, it's happened. About 6 months ago, I made a video in response to Dungeon Craft, Professor Dungeon Master, saying that I thought his supposition that Wizards of the Coast was going to overtake and buy Paizo Publishing and basically co-opt the Pathfinder 2 brand. And I thought that was a completely bad take, and I didn't think it had any validity. Well, turns out uh, he was right. I was wrong, but not for the reasons that we thought. It turns out that Paizo Publishing, well, they're not being hostilely taken over, they're just giving up. This morning, we awoke to the news that Paizo was releasing one of their most recent and more successful Pathfinder 2 adventure paths, the Abomination Vaults, as a hardcover 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons conversion. This is an official Paizo conversion being released for 5th edition. I am very disappointed. I'm actually kind of salty about this whole thing. This is a very different situation than we've ever seen before. Look, the writing is on the wall. 5th edition D&D is the king. It has the biggest player base. It has the most products. I was just on a live stream yesterday with the folks from Roll for Combat talking about why is it that 5th edition third-party products seem to do so much better on DM's Guild than Pathfinder 2 projects. And ultimately, one of the main conclusions we came from is just that there are so many people out there who are playing 5th edition that the audience base is just so huge, you can't easily ignore that, especially if you are a small press publisher. Paizo is not a small press publisher. They're number 2. Look, Coca-Cola outsells Pepsi, but Pepsi doesn't strike a brand deal with Coca-Cola and start selling Coca-Cola in their stores or converting Pepsi into Coke. No, Pepsi does its own thing and tries to carve out its own niche. This, to me, stinks of capitulation. It says to me that Paizo Publishing has come to the realization as a business decision that the only way forward for them to truly monetize their product is to make it 5th edition compatible. This is very different from when they did a work with Savage Worlds and did a Pathfinder for Savage Worlds product. That's an even smaller, almost micro press publisher. That was the little guys sticking together. This is the main competition to 5e saying, if you can't beat them, join them. I don't think this spells the instantaneous death knell for Pathfinder 2, but I do think it is a sign of the times. Pathfinder 2 may even be growing, but 5th edition is growing faster. And with 5.5 or 6th edition on the horizon, with perhaps changes in Paizo's leadership as Lisa Stevens prepares to exit her role in leadership of the company, with the recent unionization and well-publicized issues with monetization and being able to pay people, the writing on the wall simply may be Paizo has given up. And that the only way forward for them financially is to sell out. But what does this mean? What can this mean for the game? Look, 5th edition is the world's most popular role-playing game. It's the most popular version of D&D that's ever existed. But the fact is it's a very different animal than Pathfinder 2. And if suddenly this Abomination Vaults sells incredibly well, what does that mean for Paizo? What does that mean for a small content creator like me who wants to produce stuff for Pathfinder 2 and has so far avoided 5th edition when the main company itself is telling me, look, even we can't beat 5th edition? Is that a sign for me that I should just wave my white flag and say, I guess we're running Storm King's Thunder next? Again, this is very disappointing news to me. I mean, it doesn't take away the books that are on my shelves. They can't undo what they've released on Archives of Nethys. I don't think that they're going to close up shop. But if this Abomination Vault is very successful, and from everything that I've heard and talked to from various people who've done publishing, predominantly for other systems, including Pathfinder 2, who have released it with a 5e compatible version, they've told me that even though they didn't necessarily market it towards the 5e audience, the 5e version usually sold just as well, if not better, than what their core game is. Even one of my favorite games, one that I talk about on this channel all the time, Legend of the Five Rings, published by Edge Studios, a much smaller company than Paizo. Even they are releasing their game in a 5e version called Adventures in Rokugan. And even the lead designer of that book, who also designed the Fantasy Flight version, said, I don't really think this game works in 5th edition D&D. It doesn't have the mechanics designed to support the style of play. But you know what? We need the money. Well, I guess Paizo needs the money too. It's very, very disappointing for me to hear this. I don't know what this means for the future. Obviously, as a business decision, this makes total sense. Paizo is a business. They are in the business of making profit. They want to pay their workers. They want to survive. And in this climate, apparently, you can't do that without being 5e compatible. Now, of course, I don't want to be too alarmist. Okay, I'm being a little alarmist, but the fact is, this book is sort of it's a toe in the water, right? Paizo doesn't want to say that they're fully moving in and supporting 5e, but they are very clearly dipping their toe in to see how this does. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's going to do really well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge legion of people out there who have always heard about the quality of Paizo adventures, particularly, and have always been interested, but have that strong 5e mindset where they have no desire or willingness to change or have difficulty finding enough Pathfinder 2 players to get a good group together. But now here's an opportunity to play your Pathfinder adventures in your 5e world. So why convert? And if you're not converting into Pathfinder 2, then what does that mean for the future of the brand? What does that mean for folks like me who want to grow Pathfinder 2 as a system? If people who were going to convert from 5e to Pathfinder 2 in order to enjoy the rich stories, the quality adventures, the high quality of products, can now just have their cake and eat it too. I mean, sure, there might be a subset of people who are legitimately interested in the system. But even going back to Pathfinder 1, one of the strengths of the Paizo brand, of the Pathfinder brand, was on the strength of their adventures. That's even how Paizo got their start, was being a publishing house for 5e adventures. Things like Shackled City, Age of Worms, even Rise of Runelords originally. Eventually, they decided, you know what, we're going to make our own game, and in some cases, may have even beaten them at their own game. Well, the writing is very different on the wall this time, and it appears that Paizo is now moving back into that publishing house role. Again, I don't know the future, but I can tell you that I think this is going to do really well for them. All the writing and publication costs that go into making something like the Abomination Vaults, the art costs, the layout costs, that's all a fairly fixed cost. And whether you're writing for Pathfinder 2 or writing for 5th edition, your cost is pretty much the same. And if you can make 5 or 10 or 20 times as much money by sticking a 5e compatible sticker on there, or even maybe more so by just making it for 5e, then why wouldn't you? Your outlay of cost is the same, but you're going to make so much more money. Now, I get it. These games are published by people who are passionate about them. But I think we've reached a tipping point where the strength of the 5e brand is so strong. The audience size is so massive. It's become like a black hole. It is just sucking in everything else around it. You've seen it. You've seen it with every new Kickstarter that hits the web. Sells out in a handful of minutes if it's 5e compatible. And if it's not 5e compatible, good luck. And even games that seemingly shouldn't even be 5e compatible, if they want to have any chance of doing well at all, you got to stick that 5e compatible sticker on that. Only something like Avatar was able to sort of break that trend just because of the incredible strength of their IP. And it should go noted that they got a lot of criticism from a lot of people who said, why isn't this 5e compatible? The fact is, Paizo is in a very tough spot. Whereas a small content creator like me, or maybe like Magpie Games, we can afford to be basically super niche and accept that we're going to make a lot less money. Paizo is a real company with real overhead, with a now fully unionized workforce. Paizo has bills to pay, and they've found a way to pay them. Just seems like it's by joining the Wizards of the Coast. We'll see what happens, and let me know how you feel about it. Leave a comment below, like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. We, of course, are going to keep watching this closely, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.